And I would probably say this goes doubly true for anybody writing nutrition, dietitians, or trainers that do nutrition consulting or meal planning. Because the first time I saw somebody talk about eating a rocket salad, I had no clue what they're talking about. A rocket arugula.
What's a rocket salad?
It's arugula. It's what they call arugula in Britain or elsewhere. So it's rocket. It's just another name for it. Or like courgettes, which I think is zucchini.
I don't know that one either.
See? So if you read an article saying, have a nice fresh salad loaded with rockets and courgettes, you're not going to know what you're talking about. Bright Spotters are back. It's Chris and Shane again. Today, we wanted to get into some detail work. We wanted to address writing in different languages, which probably not the way you're thinking. The majority of websites and publications that you're going to appear in, if you work to get published, are going to use American English. That's just predominantly it just is. Sorry. Obviously, if you have your own blog, your own newsletter, your own Substack, that's your personal brand, your own professional brand. So you're going to write in whatever's most common to you and your audience. If you're Canadian, you're going to write in Canadian English. You're European, whatever. But it's something to be aware of. It's almost like detail-oriented. It's going to affect your spelling, your syntax, some certain references that you make. So it's just something really to like another layer of how you can improve your output and make it more readable, reader-friendly, and editor-friendly if you're looking to get published. Shane, have you had any run-ins with, spelling issues? Because I don't know if our viewers have noticed. Shane, you're not from the U.S., yeah?
No, I'm not. No, can you tell? No, I'm from Australia. So yeah, my friends, because now I've lived here for such a long time, I almost regard myself as an American, even though I don't sound like one. But they often threaten when I use American English in our conversations. They often threaten me to take away my Australian passport. So there is that. You know what? I had, because we write the date different in Australia with because we do the month and the day. We do the day and the month. We use the metric system, and you regard tomato sauce as a completely different thing to what we do. So there is those little differences. But yes, particularly with the metric system, because you guys use the imperial system. So I would like to use the term kilos when it's really pounds. So, but those kind of things are really important. And I think because when you were an editor at T Nation, you would get submissions from around the world. So you probably had some experience with guys submitting stuff from England, from Europe, and that kind of thing, and you having to just kind of pull it up a little bit and transfer it into American English so the American audience could understand.
Yeah, definitely. It's T Nation and even Breaking Muscle had an international coaching base. We had coaches from Canada, coaches from Europe, coaches from Australia. So it wouldn't be uncommon to get a piece about whatever topic, whether it's training or nutrition, and some of the words were spelled not incorrectly. It's not a right or wrong thing. It's a context thing. It's about the context that it's appearing. Like if you're talking about your body's center mass, your body's center line, a lot of times in Europe or elsewhere outside the States, it would be CENTRE. That's center. That's like midline. So that would be flipped to CENTER. Little stuff, pretty easy to do. But that's like one very small example of like a spelling difference that, the coach isn't wrong. The editor's not extra right, but to appear on this outlet, on this publication, that's just the way we do it. It's almost like house style, house rules. You brought up a great point with the metric system, because so many lifters in general just get overwhelmed by converting kilos to pounds. It's double and then some, right? Yeah. So you need to know where your stuff is going to be appearing, and because that's going to affect who you're talking to. If you want to pitch a fat loss article to a website, and like we just talked to Roger Lockridge the other day, and he was saying how he's written for Muscle Insider, which is a website based in Canada. So if you wanted to pitch a Canadian-based website, you might not say, "Hey, here's how to lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks." No, it would be, "Here's how to lose 10 kilos in 6 weeks." So that kind of detail and attention to your outlet and your readership is going to pay off dividends. It's going to make you look more polished, and it's going to be easier for the editor to work on.
Yeah, that's what because we, when we mentioned it in a couple of weeks ago with Roger, that you have to work hard to be editor friendly, and the less work an editor has to do on your piece, or if it's a pitch, even that you've taken the time to kind of just transfer it to the audience where it's going to be published, right?
No.
And it's just like a spit and polish type deal.
Definitely. And it's, like I said, it comes down to the details. It's, you write your piece the way you're going to write it, but then when you review it, when you self-edit, which is one of the most important steps you can do, when you self-edit, then you can make those tweaks to change the spelling, change the grammar if necessary. Like I said, with dates, if something's occurring on a given date. I know at Breaking Muscle, when we did a lot of sports coverage, we did like weightlifting contests, and we would go over like weightlifting results or strongman contest results. We would list the results lifted in kilograms, because that's just how the sport works. But we would also include a conversion for America.
Like in parentheses?
Yep. Yeah, we would parenthesize, 100 kilogram clean and jerk, parentheses, 220 pound.
Yeah.
So that way, everybody's happy. Everybody understands what you're writing, because that's the fundamental thing. If you're writing it, you need people to understand it, right? So
you would get people from overseas writing for Breaking Muscle also, wouldn't you?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. We had coaches. I have a great coach from Belgium, and Aurelian. He's a great guy. He's and he's sharp as anything, and language. A lot of European folks are smarter than Americans. I said that. Okay. So they speak.
We're going to edit that out.
I'm not going to edit it because it's true. It's not uncommon for a lot of Europeans to speak their native language and be relatively fluent in English. So it's not that hard for them to read or write in English also. Can't say that about most Americans.
Yeah.
So, and it's not a knock, but it's whatever it is.
It's just an observation. I got it.
Yeah. So, so a lot of coaches are able, like I said, they're able to do this self-editing and turn in an Americanized piece of content. It's not really a big deal if they don't, because that's also the editor's job. We know that going in. But it's, like I said, it's a little thing, makes you seem a little more polished. It makes your work more editor friendly.
That is one thing that always throw me, that the English call push-ups press-ups, right? And it's like, what the hell are you talking about? It's a push-up.
I mean, it is.
And I know that's just a little thing, but if you were to get an article from an English coach that say, "Oh yeah, you press ups in this way," you'd be like, "Come on, dude, it's a push up."
I mean, it is. That's what most people would call it. And again, it's not really a right or wrong thing, because But if most people are going to call them push-ups, and you know that you're writing for most people on an outlet that's going to be read by a wide audience, right with the common parlance.
I would send Chuck Norris after them, is what I would do.
He will press the world into their whatever.
But yeah, that's what I mean, because we've talked about before how details matter, and right. I know what we're talking about now is it seems such a little thing, but it's also important and something that you should be aware of. When you're writing for publications, if you're writing for, say, a website in Australia, Australians use, a particular type of language. You could write in American English and they might know what the hell you're talking about. So I think it's just a matter of, when you write something, that you take the time to realize who you're writing for. Absolutely. And I would probably say this goes doubly true for anybody writing nutrition, dietitians or trainers that do nutrition consulting or meal planning. Because the first time I saw somebody talk about eating a rocket salad, I had no clue what they're talking about. But rocket arugula. What's a rocket salad? It's arugula. It's what they call arugula in Britain or elsewhere. So it's rocket. It's just another name for it. Or like courgettes, which I think is zucchini. I don't know that one either. Yeah,
See, so if you read an article saying, have a nice fresh salad loaded with rockets and courgettes, you're not going to know what you're talking about. If you recommend, if you're writing about, have 100 grams of rice with lunch, no clue how much that is. So consider writing half a cup, or whatever that converts to.
Yeah, you're right. No, that's true. Right? Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, but particularly with nutrition, you'd have to be really careful with that, right?
Definitely, because it makes your stuff more reader friendly and more applicable. If I read a meal plan that's in grams and with portion control, portion sizes are listed in grams and not ounces, but I'm in New York and I work with ounces and whatevers. Like, it's an extra step. It's a layer of friction that makes it harder for me to implement your advice. So, nutritionists and dietitians pay extra attention to who you're writing for.
That's a really good. I hadn't thought about that. That's a really good point. Yeah, because I recently wrote a nutrition type article for Muscle and Fitness, and I didn't even think of that. Did not even think of that at all. But yeah, that's an excellent point.
And again, this goes for if you're being published on a separate website. If you're doing your own thing, writing your social media, which is your audience that came here looking for you, or your newsletter, or your whatever, your own house brand, then you write whatever is most comfortable to you, because that's your home base. But if you want to be published, then you need to be aware of the outlet itself. So that's a big factor.
And even like you said with pictures, if someone uses a metric system and they say 20 pounds instead of 10 kilos, that just shows just a lack of understanding on the author's part. So taking the time to do that is important.
No, it is. And again, it goes for in the gym also. If you're recommending, increase 5 kilograms per week on the squat versus 10 pounds a week, 12 pounds, round, there's rounding involved too. Yeah. So it's another layer that's going to influence the way you write and the way you express what you want to express. Yep.
Yeah, because it's same with, colors spelled different in Australia than because we spell it with a U.
Yep, color and flavor. Like, I was just reading actually I was checked out Muscle Insider on the Canadian website, and they were talking about protein powders and the protein powder flavors. They got that extra U in there in flavor. I'm like, all right, that's
Did you break my eye? Did you have to do a double take?
I did. I was for a fraction of a second. I was like, nope, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's something. It's noticeable.
Yeah, it's not. I think, like I said, I think it seems like such a small detail, but when it comes to, we can talk about the overall quality of writing, but these little things are, like I like to call 1%ers. They add up, right? So your article could be, say, like 92%, and then you do those little changes to your language for your audience, and it boosts it up to 99%, and so it just makes it a better article.
No, definitely. It's anything that makes your work easier to understand and just look better and be more presentable. It's like I've said before, if you want to become your editor's favorite writer, make things easy for them. Make those little changes that they don't have to.
Yeah, and like I said, because you dealt with people at T-Nation and also at Breaking Muscle who came from overseas. And so did you have to kind of school them on that a little bit?
Yes and no. It's for the most part, the caliber of writer at T-Nation was pretty polished and they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I do remember one time there was a Canadian coach who shall remain nameless, was writing his meal plan. I think it was like his personal meal plan, what he ate in a day. And he said for lunch, he had 500 grams of horse meat. And people flipped out. First of all, 500 grams, and then horse meat. And nobody in America would think of having horse for lunch. But he went into the comments and he explained that it's a relatively common food, apparently, up in Canada. Got into an interesting discussion about horse is like an American icon, and we would never dream of it because of John Wayne or something. I don't know. Yeah. But that was one very interesting example of a regional based piece of writing that there's, again, it's not a right or wrong thing. You don't have to be like self-conscious, but this is something that was unusual for an American audience. And it kind of, it spurred discussion, which is always great, but it kind of distracted from the big picture he was trying to present, because you had to spend so much time clarifying, 500 grams is this much, and here's why we eat horse.
Now, I think you bring up an interesting point, because, you said it's not right or wrong, but it acts as a distraction. So when you have those little things that act as a distraction, then that just takes away from your overall message, doesn't it?
Definitely. It's a distracting, and it's, like I said, it's a layer of friction. It's something that slows down the reader's ability to find a takeaway and put it into action.
And that could not only, apply to what we're talking about, but just the way we use cliches and language and things like that. If we put like a colloquialism into our article, and then the reader's like, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
It's the same deal. You taking away from just the quality of your article, and it acts as a distraction. I like to use anecdotes and pop culture references. Not everybody gets those, right? And then sometimes they make it into the article, sometimes they don't. I like to use Sir Mix-a-Lot, right? People who are 60 years old who are reading my articles might have no idea who that is, right? And I often go back and take those out.
Right.
Yeah. But like you said, it acts as a distraction when you do that type of thing. So when you use colloquialisms or anecdotes or cliches or pounds or kilos or whatever, you got to make sure that the reader gets it, and that's the bottom line.
Definitely. I'm guilty of that myself. I use lots of movie references, but if readers haven't seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off for some reason, like that's
well, we can't be friends for a start.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah.
But that's on me. That's me making a decision to kind of weed out, like, I'm writing to one person, which we've talked about before. If you're writing to one person, then you can fine tune it. And if they don't get your references, then they don't get your references. But you are kind of compromising on like reach and understandability. So it's a decision you have to make as a writer, like creatively speaking. How to use those references or not to. Yeah.
And I think it also, which is just a thought that popped into my head. So I'll take me as an example. Like, now I write for Muscle and Fitness, and I write for my own personal blog. So with Muscle and Fitness, you don't have to go into an in-depth explanation on things, exercise, because they're meatheads. They already get it, right? But say for people who I write for my blog, they don't get that, and they need an explanation, right? So not only is it important, those little things that we talk about with your writing, but it's also for your audience too.
No, definitely, because you need to know your audience, which is it's a fundamental point that we've said so many times. You need to know who your audience is and who's going to be, and that'll influence how you write, for sure. If you're writing to experienced lifters or beginners or something in between.
Because let's say everybody in muscle who reads Muscle and Fitness or almost any of those muscle websites knows what an RDL is, right? Knows what a Romanian deadlift. But if you say that to a newbie on your blog, they're like, "What the hell is an RDL? What the hell is a Romanian deadlift? Why is it a Romanian deadlift?" So maybe you call it a hip hinge, or a dumbbell hip hinge, or something like that. So I know, again, that's just a really small detail, but like I said, details matter.
Well, it does. It definitely does. And that ties back into the exercise names. If you're telling people to do 10 press-ups as a warm-up and 5 deep knee bends, or 10 push-ups.
I've heard the knee band one before. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about with a knee band?
I thought that's an old time, like back in the 1920s, they were writing about, actually, there was a lot of British writers who were writing about deep knee bends, which is a bodyweight squat.
Nick Tomatillo used that. He uses that too. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, Nick?
I've seen, yeah. Well, he's allowed. He's You know,
Yeah, well, yeah. It's not that you're not allowed, but yeah, like I said, when you when you have to kind of just do a quick double take, you're like, again, it just takes away from the understanding, acts as a distraction, and then your message is lost. So when you smooth those things over, so to speak, then it's like that. Like I said before, it's those extra 1%ers that bring your article, say, from a 92 to a 99.
No, definitely, and that's that's that little extra step, which is not that much extra work, but it has extra payoff, is always going to be worth it. Like you'd be hard pushed to explain why you don't want to take that extra step.
Yeah. So I think we could really sum that up is like, details matter, and you don't want language to act as a distraction.
I think that's a pretty summary. That works. I'm good. Anything else?
Okay.
I mean, that makes sense.
I think we covered it. But again, I know it seems like a small little thing, but with writing, details matter.
Always. Now, Shane, I did have one last question. If I, as a New Yorker, wanted advice to make sure I was being as clear as possible for whatever website appeared outside the US, and I needed some help translating New Yorkese to not, is there anybody in the history of the World Wide Web that can help me?
Oh, baby, you've come to the right place. It's the Right Spotters, baby. It's the Right Spotters on Instagram. You can reach out to us there. You can reach out to us at therightspotters@gmail.com. We are always available to help you smooth over those language difficulties or any questions you have with breaking into the freelance fitness game.
That sounds good. Guys, reach out, send us questions, ask for advice. We're here to help. And we will catch you guys next time.
See you guys.